Hi Gary. Catching up on videos. I'm watching this latest video about 15-20 minutes, and I already have an envelope. Got some envelopes, seal themselves shut. They make great little video notes. But it's full, so I'll finish it. But I'm just going to reply to this part with my notes so far. So the first thing is, no, not everything with power has will. I never said anything of the sort. It's this other side of that coin where, like you were saying, duh, power has to do with it. All physics has to do with power. That's Einstein. And by the way, no, I'm not disagreeing with Einstein at all. It is classical mechanics that I mean. Einstein helped invent quantum mechanics. He is the one that realized and proved that the photon was not just a mathematical construct, but had a material reality. But so the point is that there's will involved, and if we follow it, and we could find out how it works. I don't understand what the problem is with that. If I was in your position, just like in mine, I would think, well, if I had hopes or dreams of how it's going to turn out, I'd have confidence that that's how it's going to turn out. What I actually have is, I'm just curious. I have my guesses of certain aspects of how I think it'll turn out, but I don't really understand how there's anything. It doesn't matter what I think, because by suggesting a physical study, it'll turn out the real way. And we'll end up having to agree on how it works to more than we have to now. I was talking about things like complexity theory and how long it takes to do a mathematical problem. Obviously, a mathematician does care about that. You don't care about it, fine. You say most people don't care about it, fine. Most people aren't mathematicians. It is an important thing, and it's an important thing in programming, how long one method to do something takes versus another. I suggest people really look into a thing called complexity theory. It's fascinating. It's very useful. It's not just theory in the sense that we use it in practice in computing. It's good to know what things are inherently complex when you're solving abstract problems, and the things in question are abstract problems. As far as the hope is for the weak, well, I'm sorry, I admitted that sounds harsh. But then again, you ought to be able to know that I'm talking about myself. This is how I've had to deal with hope, and I'm just saying that I have found when I had hope and didn't act to do something, I felt worse than if I was in a hopeless situation and I acted on it, trying to change it. If I act on something, I feel better than sitting around hoping and waiting. And I was talking to Conference Report, who talked about, since there's determinism, all you can have is hope, and I'm like, that's exactly what I don't like about hope, that it's when there's, when you have no say. So I'm not going to embrace hope, because we never have any say. Even if I learned that we didn't have any say, I'd still have a philosophy of action, for sure. Now, I said the will is reactive. I've always said that. The issue you don't seem to understand, many of you don't understand, is not, the question is not if it's reactive. Quantum mechanics claims the most accurate theory ever. It's not because it isn't accurate. Its determined answer is more accurate than any answers ever determined. It says they can't be determined absolutely. Big deal. So the question is not if things are reactive. The question is the nature of reaction. All right? And in quantum mechanics, it's probabilistic. It has to do with statistics play themselves out in this concrete way, but an individual case is less predictable inherently for reals. Okay, so that's the difference. It's not a denial of reactivity. It's a denial of this other part of your framing of cause, where you think it has to be determined. No, it can be probabilistic. There's another set of tools. And lo and behold, they rely on statistics. And yeah, I think statistics has a little bit to do with physics. Now, I'm not claiming special powers for myself. Are you kidding me? I'm the one that says that every life form has some kind of consciousness and will. That sounds special. I'm special, like an E. coli. Yeah, I don't think so. Now, the most ludicrous thing that you said in here, I think, is when you're scoffing at my point that the elements, the physical elements that create will, are latent in the universe. You're like, that's just because you say so. Oh my God, that's just, you just say that. That's all you're just trying to say. No. We're in the universe. Whatever it is, illusion or not, it's in the universe. It's happening in the universe. And for that to be true, there have to be physical forces, laws, and particles and energy involved. And this is where you go duh again, but just remember when you go duh, that means you're agreeing with me, even though you're trying to disagree. Okay? Yeah, it's latent in the universe because it has to come from somewhere. If I take all your chemicals, freeze dry you, take all the chemicals, put them back in the same amount of water I took out, that's not the same as you, right? But there's something in those particles, latent in that case, that if arranged properly, would become you. We know that because we have you as an example. There exists those chemicals in a shape that is conscious right now. Now I notice you admit maybe there's a question about this sparky part, this first, the spark, the first person bang, first person consciousness. Yeah, exactly. So maybe I've had an effect there pointing out that even if we disagree on what the reality is going to be of a proper interpretation of how that all really works, not just how it seems, that's an important study, right? Whether or not we're free or not. And I really think that that's where we should go from here. I don't think we're going to agree or have enough science to try to agree in the short term, but we can investigate this weird subjective experience. And I'm perfectly happy and willing to admit that, all the appearance of choice, all those feelings of choice, they're all just fantasy. I know the brain can and has done that in other cases. So it remains an interesting question, without reserve. I mean, obviously, I still believe that there is will in living things, but I'm just saying the interest of this issue of what is consciousness and how does it work? How do we work with it, even if it's an illusion, or especially if it's an illusion? I mean, I figure the more we find out, the more I found out about the elusive parts of consciousness, the more it's helped me cope with reality and find reality. So I imagine that would be a good thing. And we're not looking for anything uncaused. There is a more than one model of causation. And quantum mechanics has a model of causation. Now you say, I want to change definitions. I don't want to change definitions. I want to avoid using definitions that just have too much baggage. I'm not getting rid of them. They're still part of our conversation. That's why we end up talking about them. But my approach is to go back to what I think the basics are. So, for example, those experiences in which we feel like we have a choice, our experiences of being this observer, our experiences of the Cartesian theater, things like, we don't see in 360-degree sphere around us, we see in a little cone of vision. We can tell things about it. Now, you were talking about, nothing goes away and we have determinacy evidence every day. No, you just don't get it. All of that stuff that you see, it all is explained by quantum mechanics. Gary, it's all explained by quantum mechanics as well. The laws of statistics are what make things appear determinable. The laws of statistics, if you have thousands or millions of examples, they fill out a statistical pattern that seems pretty concrete. The indeterminate part is that each individual case doesn't fit perfectly. It sort of scatters around this statistical pattern. Okay, so you get both the determinability of statistical patterns filling in certain ways and the indeterminability of an individual case. What is hard to understand about that? Why do you have to think that that means something is uncaused? And no, I'm not disagreeing with Einstein. I'm really talking about, I've really left Einstein to the side actually, because he's interesting. He started quantum mechanics. He obviously had a famous disagreement with quantum mechanics, but mostly relativity does not affect chemistry in the day-to-day kind of calculations. When a scientist is trying to do quantum mechanical calculations to like see what the spectra of a new molecule that they're studying will be, you don't use Einstein as so much as you use quantum mechanics. So when we're looking for will, I'm tending to think chemistry is pretty important. But we can look at relativity too, and we can even look at classical mechanics. I'm just telling you that I think that's a dead end. And I've looked there, and it's a dead end in terms of answering this sparky first-person question. Okay, but it's not a dead end for everything. It's still a good place to look for, smarter programs for computers. Now, you said physicists at Stanford would say that there is determinism. No. Okay, I was taught by physicists at Berkeley, only a little bit better physicists, similar. And they're the ones that told me there is no determinism. So I disagree with you. I think you're wrong. You just have to go ask them, and I already have. So don't take my word for it. They do not say that a photon takes this kind of a deterministic path. Sorry. We're talking about particle physics here and hardcore physics. And yeah, they believe in quantum mechanics now, and it is not a deterministic situation. And they just live with that. Now, don't take my word for it, but I'm just telling you, I take my word for it. I've talked to physicists at Stanford and Berkeley, so I have my opinion. Don't take my word for it. But you're wrong, because physicists do not say we're in a deterministic universe. They say we're in a probabilistic universe. If you don't know the difference, then that's the problem.